The text message arrived at 8:47 p.m. on a Tuesday that would split my life into before and after. Working late. Don't wait up. Simple words from Laurel, my wife of 22 years. Words I'd seen dozens of times over the past 3 months. Words that used to mean nothing more than overtime at the medical billing firm where she worked as office manager. But tonight was different. Tonight, I had a camera. My name is Mitchell Avery. I'm 48 years old, and I've spent the last 15 years as a commercial insurance adjuster. It's boring work that requires attention to detail and a healthy skepticism about people's stories. Those skills had been screaming at me for months that something was wrong with my wife. The changes started small. Laurel, 46, and still attractive in that suburban mom way, began working later. She'd always been dedicated to her job, but suddenly she was indispensable. Emergency billing crises, staff meetings that ran past 9, weekend catch-up sessions that couldn't wait. Then came the wardrobe updates, new blouses, expensive perfume, a gym membership she actually used. When I complimented her on looking good, she'd smile that distant smile and say something like, "I'm finally taking care of myself." The real red flag was the privacy obsession. Laurel installed a lock on her home office door. She'd disappear in there for hours, claiming she was doing work from home. When I knocked to offer coffee or just chat, she'd call through the door that she was on an important call and couldn't be disturbed. "You wouldn't understand my world anymore, Mitch," she told me one evening when I asked about her day. "The medical billing industry is incredibly complex now. It's not like adjusting insurance claims." That stung. We used to talk about everything. The financial irregularities were what pushed me over the edge. Our joint checking account showed unusual activity, cash withdrawals, transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. When I asked Laurel about them, she got defensive. "I'm handling some family expenses," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Dylan needs help with school costs." Dylan, our 20-year-old son, still living at home while attending community college, a kid who'd never shown much appreciation for anything we did for him. Lately, he'd been even more entitled than usual, acting like the world owed him something. I trusted Laurel's explanation about helping Dylan, but something felt off. The amounts were too large for textbooks and gas money. And why the secrecy? That's when I decided to install the camera. Laurel worked at Midwest Medical Billing, a small firm housed in a converted office building downtown. The building owner, Frank Morrison, was a guy I'd dealt with on insurance claims. When I approached him about upgrading the building's security system, he was enthusiastic. "Been thinking about cameras for months," Frank said, signing the authorization letter. "Too many break-ins in the area. You install whatever you think is best, Mitch. I trust your judgment." The camera was tiny, wireless, and positioned to cover the common areas of Laurel's floor, completely legal with the building owner's written permission. I told myself I was just being thorough, that I'd probably see Laurel working alone or maybe chatting with a coworker. I never imagined what I actually saw. At 8:52 p.m., 5 minutes after Laurel's text, I opened the camera app on my laptop. The office was dimly lit, just a few desk lamps creating pools of light. I could see Laurel's office door, which was closed. The reception area was empty. At 9:03 p.m., the elevator opened. I expected to see a middle-aged coworker, maybe Laurel's boss, Mr. Stein, who was known for working late and had always been a little too friendly with his female employees. Instead, my 20-year-old son Dylan walked into the frame. I literally stopped breathing. Dylan was supposed to be at home, probably playing video games in his room. He was wearing dark jeans and a hoodie, moving with purpose through the office like he'd been there before. He knocked on Laurel's door in a specific pattern. 3 quick taps, pause, 2 more taps. The door opened immediately and Laurel appeared. She was wearing one of her new blouses, the blue one that brought out her eyes. The one she'd claimed was for professional meetings. They didn't hug like mother and son. They didn't maintain the casual distance of family members. Dylan stepped close to her, closer than appropriate. and said something that made her laugh. It wasn't the laugh she used with me anymore. It was intimate, flirtatious. They disappeared into her office and the door closed behind them. I stared at the empty reception area for 37 minutes, my mind refusing to process what I'd seen. When Dylan finally emerged, his hair was disheveled and his hoodie was wrinkled. Laurel appeared in the doorway, straightening her blouse. They stood there talking quietly, and then Dylan leaned in and kissed her cheek. Not a son's peck. A lingering, inappropriate kiss that made my stomach turn. After Dylan left, Laurel stood in her office doorway for another few minutes, touching her cheek where he'd kissed her. She looked satisfied, happy in a way I hadn't seen in months. I closed the laptop and sat in my home office, surrounded by insurance files and family photos, trying to understand what I'd just witnessed. My wife and my son, the two people I'd trusted most in the world. The betrayal was so complete, so devastating, that I couldn't even feel angry yet. I just felt hollow. But I'm an insurance adjuster. I deal with fraud and deception for a living, and I know that the first rule of handling a crisis is to document everything and never act on emotion. So I saved the video file to 3 different secure locations. I made notes with timestamps, and I began planning my response. Because if Laurel and Dylan thought they could destroy our family and get away with it, they were about to learn that they'd picked the wrong man to betray. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed next to Laurel, listening to her peaceful breathing, wondering how long this had been going on. When she got up at 6:30 for her usual morning routine, she was humming. Actually humming, like she was happy about something. "Good morning, honey," she said, kissing my forehead before heading to the shower. "I might be late again tonight. Big project timeline." "Of course," I said. "Don't work too hard." The casual lie rolled off her tongue so easily. How many others had there been? After Laurel left for work and Dylan stumbled downstairs for his usual bowl of cereal, I watched my son with new eyes. He was tall like me, but had inherited Laurel's dark hair and quick smile. The smile that had always gotten him out of trouble, made teachers forgive missed assignments, convinced us to extend his curfew. "Dad, I need some cash," he said, not looking up from his phone. "Car payments due." "I thought your mother was helping with that." "She is, but I need extra for insurance and stuff. Like $300 should cover it." $300. For a kid who'd never held a real job, that was a casual request. And the way he said it, like he expected me to just hand it over. "I'll think about it," I said. Dylan looked up then, surprised. I'd never made him wait for money before. "What's to think about? It's not like you can't afford it." The entitlement in his voice was staggering. This kid who lived in our house rent-free, ate our food, used our utilities, and apparently was having some kind of inappropriate relationship with his mother, was annoyed that I wouldn't immediately give him $300. I said I'll think about it. Dylan shrugged and went back to his phone. "Whatever. Mom will cover it if you're being weird." After he left for his morning classes, I called in sick to work. I had investigating to do. First stop was our bank. I pulled records for the past 6 months, going through every transaction with the methodical approach I used for insurance fraud cases. The pattern was clear once I knew what to look for. Laurel had been making regular transfers to an account I didn't recognize. 2,000 here, 1,500 there. Always amounts that wouldn't trigger automatic alerts, but substantial enough to add up. In 6 months, she'd moved nearly $20,000 of our joint money. I called the bank to trace the receiving account. It took some persuasion and the threat of filing a fraud report, but eventually, I learned the account belonged to Dylan James Avery. My son had a secret bank account. Next, I drove to Dylan's community college. The registrar's office was helpful once I explained I was his father trying to understand his financial aid situation. Dylan was enrolled full-time, but his tuition and fees were being paid from a private account, not our family's education fund. "Your son also listed a different address for his emergency contact information," the registrar mentioned. "An apartment on Elm Street, Elm Street was across town. Dylan had a secret apartment. I drove to the address and found a decent complex. Nothing fancy, but certainly not cheap. The kind of place a college kid could only afford with significant financial help. I didn't go inside, but I sat in my car and added another piece to the puzzle. My phone rang. It was Carter Mills, my best friend since high school and a retired police detective. We usually grabbed lunch on Wednesdays. "You sound like hell, Mitch. Everything okay?" I almost told him everything right then. Carter had seen enough family disasters during his 25 years on the force. He'd know what to do, but I wasn't ready to say the words out loud yet. "Just work stress. Can we postpone lunch? I've got some things to handle." "Sure, but call if you need anything. And I mean anything." After hanging up, I drove to the office of Patricia Marks, a family law attorney I'd worked with on insurance cases. She was smart, tough, and had a reputation for protecting her clients' interests. "I need a consultation," I told her secretary. "Family matter, urgent." Patricia saw me that afternoon. She was in her 50s, gray-haired and no-nonsense. I'd always liked her direct approach. "What's the situation, Mitchell?" I told her everything. The suspicious behavior, the financial irregularities, the camera footage. I played the video on my laptop, watching her face as she processed what she was seeing. "This is highly unusual," she said finally, "and potentially very damaging to your wife's position in any divorce proceedings. You're certain this footage was obtained legally?" I showed her Frank Morrison's signed authorization letter. "Good. That protects you from any privacy violation claims. Now, what do you want to accomplish here?" "I want to protect myself financially and legally. I want to end this situation cleanly, and I want consequences for what they've done." Patricia nodded. "We'll need to move quickly. File for emergency separation, freeze joint accounts, and establish temporary asset protection. The evidence you have suggests both financial misconduct and severe breach of marital trust." "What about Dylan?" "He's an adult, so this doesn't affect custody issues. But if he's been receiving marital assets without your knowledge or consent, that could be considered conversion of property. We'll need to document everything." I left Patricia's office with a clear action plan and an appointment scheduled for the next day to file paperwork. But first, I had one more stop to make. Dr. Sarah Kim was a therapist who specialized in family boundary violations and relationship trauma. I'd found her through an online search, and her credentials were impressive. More importantly, her approach was practical rather than touchy-feely. "What you've described is a significant betrayal of family boundaries," Dr. Kim said after I explained the situation. "Whether the relationship between your wife and son is physical or emotional, it represents a fundamental violation of appropriate family dynamics." "What should I do?" "Document everything. Don't confront them until you have legal protections in place, and understand that this situation will likely get worse before it gets better. People who cross these kinds of boundaries often escalate when confronted." That evening, Laurel came home at 10:30, claiming she'd grabbed dinner after work. She was in a good mood, chatting about her day, asking about mine. The performance was flawless. Dylan didn't come home at all. At 11:15, I checked the camera feed. Laurel's office was dark, but I could see Dylan's car in the parking lot. He was spending the night somewhere in that building. I saved the footage and added it to my growing evidence file. Tomorrow, I would start fighting back. The process server found Laurel at work on Thursday afternoon. I watched through the camera feed as a professional-looking woman approached Laurel's office and handed her an envelope. Even through the grainy video, I could see Laurel's face go white as she read the emergency separation papers. She immediately grabbed her phone. I couldn't hear the conversation, but her body language screamed panic. Frantic gestures, pacing, running her hands through her hair. After 5 minutes, she hung up and dialed again. I was betting she was calling Dylan. I'd spent the morning with Patricia Marks, filing paperwork and setting legal protections in motion. Emergency separation, asset freeze on joint accounts, temporary restraining order preventing either Laurel or Dylan from accessing our primary residence without supervision, all based on the evidence of financial misconduct and breach of trust. This is aggressive, Patricia had warned, but given the circumstances, it's justified. Your wife won't be able to claim ignorance or minimize what she's done. At 6 p.m., Laurel came home. I was waiting in the living room with a folder of documents and my laptop. "What the hell is this, Mitchell?" She waved the separation papers at me. "Have you lost your mind?" "Sit down, Laurel. We need to talk." "I'm not sitting down. You had me served at work. Do you know how humiliating that was? My coworkers saw everything." I said sit down. Something in my voice must have gotten through to her because she perched on the edge of the couch, still clutching the papers. "This is insane," she said. "Emergency separation? Asset freeze? What's wrong with you?" I opened my laptop and turned the screen toward her. The video was already queued up to 9:03 p.m. the night before. Dylan walking into her office building. "Want to explain this?" Laurel's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, recognition, fear, and finally defiance. "That doesn't show anything inappropriate. Dylan sometimes stops by my office. He's my son." "At 9 o'clock at night?" "He needed to talk to me about something personal. School problems." I fast-forwarded to the part where Dylan kissed her cheek. The intimate way they stood together, the way she touched her face afterward. "School problems?" "You're sick, Mitchell. You're seeing things that aren't there because you're paranoid and jealous." I pulled out the bank statements. $20,000, Laurel. Transferred to Dylan's secret account over 6 months. "Want to explain that?" Her defiance cracked slightly. He needed help with expenses. A secret apartment on Elm Street? That's quite an expense for a community college student. "How do you know about that?" "Because unlike you, I don't lie to my family. I investigate. It's what I do for a living." Laurel stood up, pacing again. "This is ridiculous. You're making something innocent sound sinister. Yes, I've been helping Dylan. Yes, maybe I should have discussed it with you first. But filing for separation, freezing our accounts, you're destroying our marriage over nothing." "Nothing?" I clicked to another video file. This is from 2 weeks ago. This footage showed Dylan arriving at 8:30 and leaving at nearly midnight. Over 3 hours in that office. "What were you doing for 3 hours, Laurel? Really long school discussion?" She was quiet for a long moment, staring at the screen. When she looked back at me, her expression had changed. The defiance was gone, replaced by something calculating. "Fine. You want the truth? Dylan's been having problems. Real problems. He got involved with some bad people, owed money. I've been helping him get his life together." "What kind of problems?" "Gambling. He got in over his head with some online betting sites, then tried to make it back with worse bets. The people he owed money to were threatening him. It was a good lie, plausible, designed to make me feel guilty for not knowing my son was in trouble. But I'd seen the way they looked at each other in that office, the body language, the intimacy. "Show me the gambling debts," I said. "What?" "If Dylan owes money to dangerous people, there should be documentation, threatening messages, payment demands, something. Show me." "I don't have that. Dylan handled it directly." "Then let's call him. Get him over here so he can explain these gambling problems himself." Laurel's face went pale again. He's dealing with a lot right now. This isn't a good time. It's never going to be a good time, Laurel." "Call him." "No." "Then I will." I pulled out my phone and dialed Dylan's number. It went straight to voicemail. Interesting. His phone's off. Or maybe he's too busy to answer because he knows this conversation is coming. I opened another folder and spread financial documents across the coffee table. Bank statements, credit card bills, transfer records. "Here's what I think really happened," I said. "Dylan needed money, probably for that apartment and whatever lifestyle he's been living. Instead of getting a job like a normal adult, he decided to manipulate his mother. Maybe he started with small requests. Maybe he made you feel sorry for him. But somewhere along the way, it became something else. You're wrong. The money trail doesn't lie, Laurel. Neither do the cameras. Neither does the way you've been acting for months. The secrecy, the lies, the way you've been treating me like I'm some stranger who doesn't deserve to know what's happening in his own family. Laurel sat back down, her hands shaking slightly. Even if there's some truth to what you're suggesting, we can fix this. We can get counseling. We can work through it. No, we can't. Mitchell, please. 22 years of marriage, don't throw it away because of a mistake. A mistake? This wasn't a mistake, Laurel. This was a choice. Multiple choices over months. You chose to lie to me. You chose to steal our money. You chose to have whatever sick relationship you have with our son. And you chose to make me feel crazy for noticing that something was wrong. I closed the laptop and gathered the documents. The separation papers are just the beginning. Tomorrow, Patricia Marks will file a civil suit for breach of fiduciary duty, conversion of marital assets, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The evidence package will include everything I've shown you tonight, plus a lot more. You can't do this to me. I'm not doing anything to you. You did this to yourself. Laurel started crying then, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of frustration and anger. Where am I supposed to go? You've frozen our accounts. You should have thought of that before you started your secret life. You have 48 hours to remove your personal belongings from this house. After that, you'll need to schedule supervised visits. This is my home too. Not anymore. I stood up and walked toward the stairs, then turned back. Oh, and Laurel, tell Dylan that his free ride is over. The apartment, the car payments, the spending money, all of it stops now. If he wants to continue whatever relationship you two have, he can support it himself. I left her crying in the living room and went upstairs to pack her things. The next morning brought the first real consequence of my actions. Laurel's boss, Mr. Stein, called me at 7 a.m. Mitchell, I need to understand what's happening with Laurel. She called in sick today. But yesterday there was some kind of legal situation at the office. Process servers, papers being served. It's causing disruption among the staff. Stein was fishing for information, probably worried about liability issues. I decided to give him exactly what he was asking for. Laurel's been using the office for personal meetings that violate professional boundaries. I have video evidence if you need it for your records. Video evidence? The building owner authorized security cameras. They've captured some very inappropriate behavior involving my wife and my son. Behavior that probably violates your company's professional conduct policies. There was a long pause. I see. Can you send me a copy of this footage? I'll have my attorney forward appropriate documentation. After hanging up, I called Patricia Marks and authorized her to send Stein a sanitized version of the evidence package. Nothing graphic or invasive. Just enough to show that Laurel had been using company property for personal business that could expose Midwest Medical billing to liability issues. By noon, Laurel was calling me frantically. You got me fired? How could you do that to me? I didn't get you fired. Your own actions got you fired. I just provided your boss with factual information when he asked for it. I need that job, Mitchell. I need the income. You should have thought of that before you decided to turn your office into whatever it was you were using it for. You're destroying my life. No, Laurel, I'm protecting mine. The real confrontation came that evening. I was in my home office, reviewing insurance files and trying to maintain some normalcy when I heard voices in the driveway. Loud, angry voices. Through the window, I could see Laurel and Dylan standing next to his car. She was gesturing wildly, clearly upset. He looked sullen and defensive. After a few minutes, they both started walking toward the house. I met them at the front door. You can't come in, I told Laurel. The restraining order specifies supervised visits only. I'm here to get my things. Fine. Dylan can wait in the car. Dylan's coming with me. No, he's not. My son stepped forward then, trying to use his height to intimidate me. Dad, stop being ridiculous. Let us in. You don't live here anymore, Dylan. Neither of you do. This is my house too. I grew up here. And now you're grown up. Time to act like it. Dylan's face flushed red. You can't keep us out. This is insane. What's insane is a 20-year-old man who thinks he can have an inappropriate relationship with his mother and face no consequences. There's no relationship. You're sick. Then explain the apartment. Explain the money. Explain why you're at her office until midnight. I don't have to explain anything to you. You're right, you don't, because you're not my problem anymore. I started to close the door, but Dylan pushed against it. Don't you dare shut me out. Get off my property, Dylan. Both of you. Or what? You'll call the cops on your own son? I pulled out my phone. Yes, I will. That stopped him. Dylan stepped back, but his face was twisted with anger. You're going to regret this, Dad. You think you're so smart with your cameras and your lawyers, but you have no idea what you're dealing with. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Laurel finally spoke up. Dylan, stop. Let's just go. No, I'm tired of his bullshit. He thinks he can control everyone, but he can't control me. You're right, I said. I can't control you, but I can protect myself from you. I dialed 911. I need police assistance. 2 people are trespassing on my property and refusing to leave. Dylan's eyes went wide. You actually called the cops? Dispatch, yes, I'll stay on the line. Laurel grabbed Dylan's arm. We're leaving, come on. But Dylan wasn't done. You know what, Dad? You want to know the truth? Mom didn't seduce me. I went to her. I told her I needed money, and when she said no, I convinced her to help me. Convinced her how? I told her I'd tell everyone about her affair with Mr. Stein if she didn't start giving me what I needed. Laurel went white. Dylan, shut up. No, he wants the truth. Let him have it. I've been blackmailing Mom for months. The money, the apartment, everything. She's been paying me to keep quiet about her screwing her boss. The pieces clicked into place. Laurel's affair with Stein. Dylan finding out and leveraging it for money. The late-night office visits weren't romantic. They were business meetings where Dylan collected his payments and made new demands. You've been extorting your own mother? Dylan shrugged. She made it easy. All I had to do was threaten to tell you about Stein, and she'd hand over whatever I wanted. And the inappropriate behavior I saw on camera? What inappropriate behavior? I never touched her. I just let you think I did. Laurel was crying now, real tears of shame and humiliation. Dylan, please stop talking. Why? It's over anyway. Dad's already destroyed everything. The police arrived then, 2 officers who took statements and asked Dylan and Laurel to leave the property. No arrests, but official documentation of the incident. After they left, I sat in my driveway for a long time, processing what Dylan had revealed. My son wasn't having an affair with his mother. He was blackmailing her, which was, in some ways, even worse. I called Patricia Marks and Dr. Kim, updating them on the new information. Then I made one more call. Carter, it's Mitch. I need that lunch we postponed, and I need to tell you everything. Carter Mills listened to my story without interruption, occasionally nodding or making notes on a napkin. We were sitting in Murphy's Diner, the same place we'd been meeting for lunch since high school. The familiar surroundings made the surreal nature of my situation even more bizarre. Jesus, Mitch, Carter said when I finished. That's not a family problem. That's a criminal enterprise. What do you mean? Extortion, blackmail, conversion of assets. Your kid's been running a con game on his own mother for months. But she was having an affair. She's not innocent in this. No, she's not. But that doesn't give Dylan the right to extort her, and it doesn't excuse what she did to you. Carter stirred his coffee thoughtfully. What do you want to happen here, Mitch? Really? I want them to face consequences, real consequences, not just financial settlements or restraining orders. I want them to understand that actions have results. Be careful what you wish for. Consequences can get ugly fast. That afternoon, I put Carter's warning to the test. I drove to Dylan's apartment complex and found his car in the parking lot. Instead of confronting him directly, I left a note under his windshield wiper. "Rent's due tomorrow. Hope you saved some of that blackmail money." Then I called his landlord, a guy named Pete Kowalski, who owned several properties around town. I'd handled insurance claims for Pete before, so he took my call. "Pete, this is Mitchell Avery. My son Dylan rents one of your units on Elm Street. I need to let you know that his financial situation has changed dramatically, and he may not be able to make rent going forward." "Oh, should I be worried about this month's payment?" I'd say yes. Dylan's been receiving money from family sources that have been permanently cut off. He has no job and no other income that I'm aware of. "Thanks for the heads up, Mitchell. I appreciate the honesty." Next, I called Dylan's community college and spoke to the financial aid office. "This is Mitchell Avery. My son Dylan is enrolled in your program. I need to inform you that I will no longer be providing any financial support for his education, and any previous arrangements for payment should be considered void." "Sir, we show that Dylan's tuition has been paid through a private account, not through family contributions. That account was funded with money obtained through illegal means. I'd suggest requiring Dylan to provide documentation of legitimate income sources before accepting any future payments." By evening, I'd made similar calls to Dylan's car insurance company, his credit card company, and his cell phone provider. Everywhere Dylan had listed me or Laurel as emergency contacts or financial guarantors, I made it clear that our support was permanently withdrawn. The response was swift and devastating. Dylan showed up at my house at 9 p.m., pounding on the door and shouting, "Open up! I know you're in there!" I didn't answer, but I did turn on the exterior security cameras I'd installed earlier that day. "You can't do this to me. That's my apartment, my car, my life." Through the window, I could see him pacing on the front porch, his face red with anger. "I'll tell everyone what really happened. I'll tell them you're crazy, that you made up stories about Mom and me." I opened the door then, but kept the security chain engaged. "Tell whoever you want, Dylan. I have documentation for everything." "You ruined my life." "No, I ended your crime spree. There's a difference." "It wasn't a crime. Mom gave me that money willingly. Under threat of blackmail, that's extortion, which is a felony." Dylan's face went pale. "You can't prove that." "Actually, I can. I recorded our conversation yesterday when you confessed to blackmailing your mother. It's all documented." "You recorded me without my permission?" "On my own property, which is completely legal, just like the security cameras that are recording you right now." Dylan looked up at the cameras, then back at me. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing. I want nothing from you, Dylan. I want you to leave my property, leave my life, and figure out how to support yourself like an adult." "I can't afford the apartment without help." "Then get a job, or move back in with your mother, wherever she's staying now." "She won't even talk to me. She blames me for everything." "Good. Maybe she's finally learning to take responsibility for her choices." Dylan slumped against the porch railing. For a moment, he looked like the little boy I used to read bedtime stories to, but that little boy was gone, replaced by a young man who thought blackmail was an acceptable way to solve his problems. "Dad, please. I know I messed up, but I can fix this. I can pay back the money." "With what? You've never held a job in your life." "I'll get one. I'll do whatever it takes." "It's too late for that, Dylan." "It's never too late. We're family." "No, we're not. Family doesn't blackmail each other. Family doesn't lie and steal and manipulate. You stopped being my family the moment you decided to become a criminal." I closed the door and walked away, leaving Dylan on the porch. He pounded on the door for another 10 minutes, then finally left. The next morning brought the final piece of my revenge. I'd spent hours crafting a detailed report of everything that had happened, complete with documentation, video evidence, and a timeline of events. I sent copies to everyone who needed to understand the truth. Laurel's family received copies, along with an explanation of why their daughter was suddenly unemployed and homeless. Dylan's friends got versions that focused on his blackmail scheme and financial crimes. The community college received a formal complaint about Dylan's conduct and the source of his tuition payments. But the most satisfying delivery was to Mr. Stein at Midwest Medical Billing. Along with the evidence package, I included a note. Thought you should know that your affair with Laurel wasn't as secret as you thought. Dylan has been using it to extort money from his mother for months. You might want to consider whether this situation exposes your company to liability issues. Stein called me within an hour. Mitchell, I think we should meet. There are some things you need to understand about the situation with Laurel. Such as? The relationship you think existed between us. It wasn't what it appeared to be. Laurel was the one pursuing it, and I was trying to handle it professionally. When Dylan approached me about it, I thought he was trying to protect his mother from making a mistake. Dylan approached you? Several times. He said he was worried about his mother's behavior and wanted to make sure she wasn't doing anything that would hurt her marriage. I thought he was being a good son. The final piece of Dylan's manipulation became clear. He hadn't just been blackmailing Laurel about an affair. He'd been orchestrating the entire situation, encouraging her inappropriate behavior so he'd have leverage to use against her. That kid played everyone, Stein continued. His mother, me, probably you too. He's not just a blackmailer, he's a sociopath. After hanging up, I sat in my office and felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The truth was finally complete, and everyone involved understood exactly who they'd been dealing with. Dylan wasn't just entitled or immature. He was genuinely dangerous, a manipulator who saw his own family as targets for his schemes. And now he was someone else's problem.